of us. Easy for listening. I was able to do it. Easy for dancing. I'm not a great lover of cat. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are. Not me. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to One-on-One Shadowboxing. Today my fellow shadowboxer is Jai Martinkovic, who is from Can-Do. What is Can-Do? What sort of organization is that, Jai?
Can-Do is a community action network, and what we try to do is to take issues which the grassroots of Australia, the average everyday Aussie, feels passionately about, and to give it a voice at the right levels where we can affect change. So we're really interested in preserving, protecting and defending people's individual rights, freedoms and values, and of course with that, reminding them about their personal responsibilities.
Is these freedoms and values are in danger?
They are, increasingly, and it's not because of the people themselves, it's because of this alliance which has emerged between the elites of society, the left-wing nut jobs which occupy the key institutions, and they've marched through these institutions, they've occupied them, and they're working together in this unholy alliance which has emerged with the power brokers in political parties which have really gained a monopoly over representative democracy.
That's a good introduction for your book, co-written with David, and the title is Give Us Back Our Country.
That's right. And I think that's the mood increasingly right across the nation. Whether you go to our pubs, our clubs, anywhere you go, this is what people are feeling, that their country has been taken away from them.
On that note, this country, first of all, is taken away from the Aboriginal people by the white settlers. So which country are we talking about now?
Well,
the same country?
I don't think that's necessarily true to say that we took it away. I think that it was inevitable that Australia was going to be settled in one form or another, and I think that the Aboriginals probably got the best possible situation which was going to occur inevitably. So I think that the way that we have handled that and the evolution of our institutions and different things that the English brought to Australia has provided overwhelmingly a very positive outcome, in as much as a positive outcome can be achieved in that way.
To the life of the people in here.
I think
so. So why are we saying that give us the country back to us? Why? So what's happened? I know we got a wonderful start for the country. What went wrong?
Well, we inherited wonderful institutions. These were institutions which came to our country at settlement. We developed several other institutions and Australianised those institutions along the way. And the representative democracy, as it's widely understood, this is where we elect our leaders for their opinions and their sound judgments and to represent us in that capacity. But no longer are they holding their own opinions and expressing their opinions. They've had to sacrifice their opinions to the power brokers in political parties. So it's not that we have candidates in political parties anymore, or certainly the major political parties, which are chosen on merit. And I mean, we're of course in Western Australia, which I understand the situation is better than in other states, but particularly
that's news for us. It's news for West Australians, but
well, the factions within the parties, there's not that same degree of factionalism as I understand it in Western Australia as there is in New South Wales.
That's probably true, but the politicians still lying here, so...
Well, absolutely. I mean, politicians
not much of a difference, is it? Why they're doing it, I don't know.
But they're not chosen, particularly in New South Wales, on merit. We're seeing that the people who are chosen, it's because of their favours, that they have an allegiance to a particular faction and they're given safe seats in Parliament as a reward. Now, this isn't going to provide the best outcome for democracy. They're not representing people. They're just puppets within the theatre, the parliamentary theatre. Question time is a farce. It's all pre-arranged in advance. There's nothing about representative democracy today which is as it was understood and operated in the past. And we think that's something that needs to be addressed.
So we started with a good start constitution of us. So we build the nation on.
We've built on top of the institutions that we inherited. So we inherited The Crown was our oldest institution. It's a wonderful check and balance on political power. We inherited the English language. Now, not that everybody, of course, is a Christian or even indeed religious, but the values that we were built upon as a nation is essentially Judeo-Christian values. So we had these four institutions which came at settlement, and subsequently we federated and we developed a very Australian, uniquely Australian development on top of those institutions.
How does it work now, apart from having the political power brokers, the elite?
Well, where we would have once had politicians who were acting in the interests of the nation, what they've done is what we say is that it's very difficult today to think of any problem which hasn't either been caused or at least in some way made worse by the politicians. Now, the average Australian, we say, is equipped with three things. Well, firstly, they're basically decent people, and that they have common sense and they have good judgment. And in their common sense and good judgment, the Australian people would expect certain outcomes and certain actions in politics, but the political actions are not aligning with what the people are expecting. The politicians are acting in their own interests.
So this doesn't pass the pub test.
Exactly. It's a wonderful way of putting it. We borrowed that term from somebody who first coined that, which prominent radio broadcaster Alan Jones. He describes it as the pub test.
Which is common sense.
It is. It's shorthand for common sense. Absolutely. And increasingly, politicians are not passing the pub test. Too often they're doing things which just defy common sense. And I think this is what's contributing to the mood right across the nation, that people are screaming, give us back our country. They want their politicians to be truly accountable between elections.
Okay, let's see a test, a common sense test.
Sure.
Jai, one problem.
Well,
education.
Absolutely, that's a prime example. The way that they have, I think it's on two levels. There's two facets to this. The way that they've taken discipline within the schools, and they've absolutely demolished any discipline which would have existed in the past. When I went to school, it's very different to, I'm sure, when you went to school or when my co-author Professor Flint went to school. What they've done is they've neutered the power of the teacher. They've undermined all of their authority. This is something which has stemmed from other facets of Australian life too, where they've undermined the family, for example, and students are getting into the school system. They've already lacked that discipline, which is a result and has flowed from home. They've come to school, they've learnt, well, the teacher now has no authority, and this flows through later into their life too. It's not something which is restricted to the school environment, but it certainly does contribute to them having a poor education. Then they've also adopted these fashionable theories overseas just as they're failing. So you see these different fashionable theories that they implement, and you can see that there has been a steady decline over many years since they've been acting in this way. This isn't the way it happened in the past. Now, the only way, for example, in history, as somebody who's been subjected to this decline in standards, has been through subsequent reading and my own personal interests, which have developed subsequently. It wasn't that I was taught, for example, the wonderful principles that we refer to in part 2 in our book.
What the politicians say of the problem at the school, they say, they're not saying we need discipline, we need the teachers to teach. They just say, oh, let's find someone who could advise us. And they find Gonski, who is a businessman, nothing to do with education. And he said, my assessment is, we need more money, money will solve the problem. Money solve every problem or all the problems of life?
It doesn't. And the thing is, it's not about the number of students that you have in a class. For example, classes used to be much larger. It's about the information that you're teaching and the way in which you teach it and the discipline that you maintain in the classroom. Now, common sense, you understand this, common sense tells you that this is what you do. The politicians don't understand this. They don't have that same level of common sense.
But they are well educated. They are almost over-educated to understand common sense. So why and how they not understand what the people want first?
Part of it, I think, flows from this sense of individualism. Now, not that there's anything wrong with that in itself, but when you apply it in the purest sense, you can see that, oh, well, look, if little Johnny wants to tell the teacher where he can go, well, then that's little Johnny's right to express himself in that way. Or if he doesn't want to do his homework, he doesn't have to. Or this other stupid theory where students can mark their own work. How can they apply various criteria to mark that? I'm not sure, but you see these just ridiculous suggestions that are put forward, and people adopt them, probably because they don't know any better. I mean, students that are going through school, they grow up with it, they think that's the norm. It's only older people who perhaps were educated differently,
yes, and got some experience,
can point these things out.
So what's the solution then? The money is definitely not, the Gonski report is not, especially if you're just applying one part of the Gonski report. And the politicians still want to push this through.
Well, that's right. I mean, common sense says we need strong classroom discipline. We need to have a sound curriculum. We shouldn't have a national curriculum. We should have competition across the nation. So, I mean, these common sense proposals that I think most people understand we need don't line up with the political class. We need to make sure that the people are empowered themselves to be able to do these things. And no doubt we'll be speaking about that.
On that note, Jai,
sure,
we're coming back, but we have to go to a short break. And after the break, we'll continue our discussions on the possibilities of direct democracy.